Right, so have I emailed Dan Gibson myself? I haven't emailed Dan Gibson. I have watched a lot of his his series, and I find it interesting. Dan Gibson has been one of he's at the forefront of this campaign that that the Muslims have got Mecca wrong, that Mecca was in Petra. I'm not convinced by his research, although I give it to him. I feel that he has done some amazing research, though. I am really genuinely impressed by some of these people who, I mean, I don't know if impressed is the right word, but I am wowed by their commitment. The people who are not Muslim, but they will spend decades of their lives to an issue of Islam. And I feel that we as Muslims ought to welcome that, even if it challenges our notions. Because if we are confident and secure in what we believe, then we ought to be able to stand the test of time and the test of critiques, and critics. So I feel that his evidence is very interesting. I have been going through his book, Early Qiblas in Islam, and I haven't been through his other ones yet on geography in the Quran, but I've been through a lot of his series of archaeology and Islam. It's very fascinating, and some of it has got me, and I'm still researching some of the things. It's ongoing, but I'm not convinced. And I feel that he has this one interview where he has a mathematician that speaks about the standard deviation, and because what Dan Gibson has done in essence is he's gone to 60 of the most ancient, allegedly ancient masjids in the world that have some foundations that he can trace, and he feels their qibla points more towards Petra than it does to Mecca. The foundations, not the current building. So the current building will point towards Mecca, but the foundations allegedly point towards Petra. Now, you see, the issue with this is that doesn't stand true in all the things. So North Africa clearly doesn't. It doesn't point to Mecca nor Petra. It seems to point south. Andalusia, Muslim Spain, seems to point south. He does come up with a theory to explain that, not convincing at all. Many places that are far off. You see, because Petra and Mecca are still the east. I mean, Petra is in modern-day Jordan. So it's very... Muslims were never trying to hit the Kaaba spot on. He then does some interesting research and shows how closer are they to Mecca than they are to Petra. And it's true, in many of the masjids he shows, they are closer to Petra than they are to Mecca. But in many others, they're not. And he doesn't take that into consideration. I mean, he does disclose it, but he doesn't take it into consideration as much. He then has, on one of his interviews, he has a statistician that is then showing the statistics and the standard deviation of these qibla points, and he does a diagram where if there were 10 points and you had to point, the fact that these masjids are pointing towards Petra, the probability of them, like he brings it down to something like 1 billion or something ridiculous. Because if you've got 10 points, but every time it keeps pointing towards this one more than that, then the statistics is to the power of 10 and whatever. Now, it's all mathematics, and I'm not a kind of mathematician like that. But I could clearly see what was a fallacy in his reasoning, and that was that he begins this equation with 10 points, saying that if you had to point to 10 directions and you kept getting this one. But when it comes to Petra and Mecca, you're just talking about 2 places. There ain't 10. There is no 10 qiblas. There's simply Mecca, as Muslims claim, or Petra, as these people are claiming that Muslims once believed in Petra. Now, that's it. So there isn't this, and this equation is a fallacy in anybody who watches that can see that. So the other thing to refute, which is compelling, is that proto-source hypothesis. That how can it be that the Shia, the Sunnah, the Sunni mainstream Muslims and the Khawarij all agreed upon the Kaaba, they would never have agreed. I mean, they would have, the Shia would have definitely, or the Khawarij would have used that as evidence against the mainstream of Muslims, like they did in many other things. Why would they hold back on Petra? So I feel that said, I do find many of the things they're saying very interesting. Like, I don't think what Dan Gibson or these people are saying, some of the things that they're saying, like Patricia Crone and these people, is nonsense. I feel it's very compelling, and it's made me on certain matters reevaluate my own narrative. And I feel that Islam, the history is how it was, but the nuances may not have been what we thought they were. I do agree with that after, a lot of this, since I've been researching this Islam revisionist, what Orientalist, what they're saying, I feel that on some things they do have a point. They're not actually, like we have this thing that they're just totally blind. They're not. They actually make a compelling argument on, not necessarily the qibla thing, on other matters. So they do. They spend so much years of their life, like, what were the Quraysh, what did they used to trade in? What were these journeys? Where were these journeys to? Rihlat al-shita'i was-sayf. Where did they used to go? What do the Greek records demonstrate? These people have looked into all of these. They're not just, just sitting there chatting nonsense. And I feel that Muslims shouldn't just dismiss them so easily. We should look into it. So yeah, I hope that helps.